Hi everyone, I'm Racing Sinek, and today we're going to be looking at something high action and adventure. Jamestown was developed and produced by Final Form Games and released in 2011. Jamestown, Legend of the Lost Colony is a steampunk reimagining of world history. Let's look at the story. The story is told through what I think are journal entries of the main character. It starts out with him coming to the New World because he was convicted of treason in England and is escaping the executioner's axe. And the New World is, as we know from all our history books, Mars. So, as it turns out, England and Spain and France didn't colonize the Americas in this world. They went into space and colonized Mars. Though the French are never mentioned, so maybe they didn't make it into space. Poor France. How'd they get into space? Who cares? The point is, we have the English and the Spanish fighting with steampunk weaponry on the open fields of Mars. The game uses historic figures and locations, like Jamestown, the lost colony of Roanoke, John Smith, Virginia Dare, and the main character, Walter Raleigh. These historic figures make up the notable cast and tell the story of the game, slightly mirroring history while also not mirroring it at all. Like how Walter Raleigh was a founder of Roanoke Colony, not someone who investigated its disappearance. Or like how that happened before he was tried for treason and not after. Knowing the actual history isn't all that important for the story though. The story feels like the main character has really lost his country, and that he's hoping that coming to the colony will help him go home. All the journal entries have this loss of hope. Everything feels very heavy, tired. He's an old man at this point who had to flee his home to avoid dying, and now he has to fight a bunch of Spaniards and their Martian allied force. Yeah, he can be a little bleak on the outlook side of things. There is a farcical story that can be unlocked. You know, if you don't like dealing with all the Enough story, let's talk gameplay. Jamestown is a vertical scrolling SHMUP bullet hell. And if you don't know what a SHMUP is, let me give you a quick rundown. A SHMUP, or shoot 'em up, is a scrolling shooter where the player must dodge incoming enemy fire while also attacking. The SHMUP is an arcade classic used as a major quarter sink in arcades. The SHMUP is usually characterized by an automatically scrolling level, the ability to move around the screen, fire at enemies somehow, and be fired upon, like Galaga or more accurately the Gradius games. I've heard that the difference between a bullet hell and non-bullet hell SHMUP is that a bullet hell enemies are shooting regardless of your location more often than they are going to be aiming directly at the player. While I am unsure of this definition, I have found it helpful for separating bullet hells from other SHMUPs in my brain zone. Now let's see what makes Jamestown unique. You start with one ship, and can unlock 3 other characters to play as, each characterized by the type of weapon they use. Each ship has a standard weapon and a special weapon. Walter Raleigh uses Beam, which fires a large continuous beam across the screen. John Smith has the Gunner, which fires a normal shot and a wide shot. The wide shot can be moved around by holding the special button. Virginia Dare has Charge, which constantly charges a slow-moving ball that can be fired at any time, though it is most effective at max charge. And finally, Joachim. I've heard it pronounced Joachim, but I prefer Joachim, so I'm going to pronounce it Joachim. Anyway, Joachim Gans, who uses the bomber, that can detonate shots fired by the ship. The destroyed enemy drops these little golden hexagons? I think it's a nut. And collecting it gets you some points, as well as charging this meter at the top of the screen. When it's full, you can push another button to activate Vaunt mode, which gives you a temporary shield. The shield destroys bullets around you, and gives you some points for each bullet removed. Vaunt mode also gives you a score multiplier and an attack buff for as long as Vaunt mode is active. You extend Vaunt mode by collecting more gold nuts or gears or... Oh, it's a part of the ships. Got it. Except the plants drop them too. Huh. Vaunt mode can be ended before the bar runs out to give you a second, even more brief shield for when you really need to stay alive right now, thank you. The game has 5 different levels, each with its own music, tone, and enemies. The tone starts out triumphant and gets more dire as the levels increase in difficulty. Some enemies have special defeat conditions, which will net you some extra points if you destroy them at a specific time or in a specific order. For all I know, there's a special for each enemy, but I only found a few. I was mainly focused on completing the levels rather than getting the highest score. You select levels you have unlocked and play them one at a time. When you play with 2 continues and 3 lives per continue. A single hit by any enemy or enemy bullet will kill you, so, be careful. Each level is finished with a multi-stage boss fight. There is also a gauntlet mode that can be unlocked where you play with 2 continues that do not reset at the end of levels, the more traditional arcade shmup style. And I suck at it. Not the whole game, just gauntlet mode. Oh man, do I die a lot. When you finish a level, you are given a score and some money you can spend to unlock ships, gauntlet mode, the farce story, or special challenges. I am also bad at the challenges. The game has up to 4-person local co-op, with players able to use a gamepad, keyboard, or mouse controls. They are also fully remappable. I never played multiplayer because I am alone. At least I think I'm alone. But I can imagine it can get pretty chaotic. My preferred playstyle was with the gamepad, but since the keyboard is fully remappable, I imagine that being pretty good for most people. As of this recording, I am yet to play with a mouse, but you would need a 3-button mouse to play this game properly. The aesthetic with this game is a Colonial steampunk. The different enemies look distinct and do not fade into the background, which is good because you need to be able to see them so you don't die. Now there is a problem with where the gameplay meets the art. Your character is only actually hit if the enemy or bullet hits a small cluster of pixels on the character's back. This cluster is not distinct, so it makes it difficult to tell what is your hitbox and what are the extra things to make your character look good. Now for the sound. Sound effects work well, not really anything negative to say about it. Mostly you'll be focusing on what you're seeing more than what you're hearing. Now I really enjoy the soundtrack, from the opening sweeping score to the level completed jingle. The soundtrack is very connected to the themes, with the later level tracks continuing the trend of things getting way more intense. Time again for my good, bad, strange, and bland. The good is the aesthetic. I love the steampunk Colonial Mars combination. All the enemies have a distinct look, like the mecha-organic look in the first stage to the creepy Lovecraftian look in the second stage. Each level feels distinct but related, like they're all from the same game and all have the same style. This is important. There are games that are very jarring from one level to the next. The bad has to be the game speed. Jamestown is very stop and go. There aren't really smooth transitions. When you are playing a level, the pacing is very well timed and continuous, but when you complete a level, or die, you are shown the results screen, then brought back to the level select screen, then you can go back into a level. But the level doesn't start right away. You have to go through this little preamble, which is cool, but you can't skip the preamble. So when you're trying to get quickly back into the level, because you're trying to beat the game, you become acutely aware of the progress you are not making. Now there's a gauntlet mode to help mitigate this stop and go problem, right? Nope. You still have to go through the preamble, the results screen, and maybe the story screens if you click the wrong button. So while the game goes at a good speed, the menu navigation and between play parts are a bit clunky. The strange is the final ship you unlock, Joaquin Gann's bomber. It fires at an extremely slow rate, and then you can detonate the bullets, and the explosion is really tiny, not much bigger than the actual bullet. While I understand that the bomber is meant to be an advanced ship, I do not understand its use at all. If the bullet's stuck into enemies and then you could detonate it manually, I would at least understand that. But that's not how it works. If a bullet hits an enemy, it damages them, just like a shot normally does. Now for the bland. Well, it's really more of a boring aspect rather than a bland one. Let me explain. The early 2 levels are unlocked normally, by beating the previous stage. But after that, you have to beat higher difficulties to unlock later stages. For all previous stages. This means that if you didn't beat early stages on higher difficulties, you have to go back and beat them again. Yes, they are harder, but it's still the same stage. I mean, yeah, you're playing for a longer time, but it doesn't really feel like progression. Time to wrap up. Jamestown is a well-made shmup. The different ships are interesting, levels are colorful and enjoyable, and even with the game's speed problems and forced replaying, the game does have a very satisfying ending. Jamestown is available on Gamersgate and Steam for $9.99. There is also a DLC that adds new ships and challenges for $2.99. As of this recording, a PlayStation 4 version has been released recently as well, called Jamestown Plus. Well, till next time, I'm Wright and I'm gonna go check on my Mars holdings.